Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today with you to share another passage about the theme I'm working on this week, and perhaps you figured it out. It's about love, and it's an interesting theme because love is so easy to say and so hard to do. It's easy when all it's going to require us is a few words and a moment of our time. It's hard when we have to keep trying and trying and trying, and it even looks like we're not being received. But that's kind of how Jesus did it. I'll talk about that in a second. Let's read the scripture this morning. It comes from 1 John chapter 3, verses 16, 17, and 18. And here's what it says. We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we ought also to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. If someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Well, it says here that we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. Of course, that's an old story that folks in the church have heard and heard and heard, and maybe even folks who aren't in the church. If you're not a churchgoer and you're listening to me, well, maybe you also heard that Jesus died and gave up his life for me. Now, if we just think about that for a minute, what did I do to deserve that? Well, the answer really is nothing. I didn't do anything. Now, it's particularly true for you and me today because Jesus died about 2,000 years ago. I mean, I wasn't even around then. What could I do now that would have affected what he did 2,000 years ago? The answer is really simple. It's not hard to understand. I didn't do anything. So, why is it that he died for me before I was even conceived of? Well, it's really kind of simple. And I know it sounds simple, but it really is simple. Jesus died for me because, drum roll, because he loves us and he loves me. In spite of all of my warts and my misgivings, in spite of all of my good intentions that don't quite get worked out, in spite of my failings, in spite of the times that I disappointed, in spite of everything, he just loves me. And he loves you too. Now, that love doesn't mean that if we want to respond to him, we can just live our lives as we did before. No, that doesn't work. It's not, as John Wesley called it, it's not cheap grace. It's very expensive. It cost a lot. It cost God his own son. Now, that's a lot. More than I probably would pay given the situation if it were turned around. I don't know how I could do that. But God could because he loves us. He wants us to do better than what we've ever thought about doing. So it goes on to say, okay, so that's the framework, that's the basis. Jesus kept being willing to die even though people didn't respond to it. Even though the people on Palm Sunday who said he was great and wonderful on Good Friday said, kill him, get rid of him, he's just too much trouble. You see, we're pretty darn fickle when it comes to our allegiances. Oh, I know. Somebody will say, well, not me. Well, yeah, you too. Come on. Let's just, as they used to say where I taught, let's just be real. Let's just keep it honest here. It's easy to say I love the Lord as long as it doesn't cost me very much. So it goes on here to say in verse 17, if someone has enough money to live and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Well, let's talk about need. We're not just talking about monetary needs. We're talking about needs for friendship, needs for encouragement, needs for not feeling alone. People have lots of needs. I have needs. You have needs. Yeah, I didn't hurt my thumb. That's ink. I'll just tell you so you don't have to be concerned about it. People have lots of needs, and I do too. I'm human. I get my feelings hurt. I feel like people neglect me from time to time. I feel like I do the best I can and I get nothing for it. You know what it's like to care about a loved one and you do everything you can and they continue to go downhill and you feel so helpless. Well, maybe someone will come by your path that you can say, hey, you're not helpless. This morning I said that to a guy. I said, feeling guilty for what you did in the past is not from God, not when it just keeps burdening you and burdening you. Feeling guilty is good if it motivates you to change, but to just constantly feel guilty, well, that's not an act of compassion. That's an act of bondage. And this passage is not trying to be bondage. It's just simply saying it as it is. If you really care about someone and you see someone in need and you don't meet it, well, you're not very committed to being a Christian. Now, I hate to say it that way, but I mean, come on, let's go. What else you going to say? So then the last verse tells us, dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Today, you have a chance to show somebody that you care about them. You even have a chance, probably, to show somebody that you don't like or that you don't know. What are you going to do with that chance? Now, I'm not good at making people feel guilty. Don't misunderstand this at all. But I'm going to say this. If you have a chance today and you don't take it to show love and compassion to someone, if you don't take that opportunity may never come again. Think about that and remember how much, in spite of what you might feel, God really loves you. Well, thanks so much for listening. I'll be back, finish up this series tomorrow. If there's anything we can do to help, or if you have a need, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. So until tomorrow, have a great day. Look for ways to share love to others. Take care. I'll be back again.